Greetings! I am Herbert Erpaderp, and today I'm going to build the British and Commonwealth Canadian Military Pattern 1500 weight, or CWT for short, truck. That's a bit of a mouthful, isn't it? This is a 15mm scale plastic wargaming kit from the Plastic Soldier Company, and as the box tells us, it's suitable for British and Commonwealth forces. The back of the box shows a basic painting guide with Vallejo colours. These are never much more than a basic starting point for painting, but I'm sure that's helpful to some. Inside the box there are sprues, 5 of them in fact, all of which look like this one, which makes sense considering that the box can make 5 identical trucks. These sprues are pretty much what I would expect from the Plastic Soldier Company. That is to say, they look nice, they're neat, and there's not a whole lot that will require cleaning up. As always, mould lines and such are there, but you're not going to be sitting at your bench swearing at them for hours and hours. Not that that's really an appropriate way to deal with mould lines, you should just scrape them off like everybody else. The level of detail here is pretty good. Obviously this is a gaming piece, and it is in 1/100th scale, so it's very unlikely that you're going to be seeing hyper-realistic detailing here. That's probably obvious to most, but there's always going to be that one person who says, the detail sucks. Why didn't you buy the blank 1/35th scale kit? Completely missing the point of buying a 15mm scale wargaming kit. The kit is fairly well detailed for what it is, and what it's meant for is wargaming. The only problem I have really is that the canvas cover for the rear of the truck doesn't really have any details on the ends, but that is a pretty minor complaint, and like I said, it is a wargaming kit in a smaller scale, so some omission of detail is to be expected. Unfortunately, decals aren't included with this kit. Plastic Soldier Company do make some good decals, and it would be nice if they would include some with their kits, but as far as I know, they never do. So, all that's left to look at is the instruction leaflet. On one side there's a sprue diagram, and on the other, the instructions. These are pretty simple to understand and follow. There are pretty much no options, or different variants to worry about, so this is going to be pretty straightforward. Let's begin. The first step is to join the cab bottom with the mudguards onto the front of the frame. You can tell it's the front because the towing hitch goes at the rear. There is some keying for this and it should be fairly obvious when it's in the right place. Next, it's time for the cab. Makes sense, right? I figured I would try joining the cab sides to the rear wall and then joining that to the frame. And this did work. I was thinking it might be a good way to make sure the parts were lined up nice and neat. Of course, you can add the parts to the frame individually too. That works as well. I did that on subsequent trucks. Once I've got the cab sides and rear on, the front of the cab can be installed, though it did take a bit of nudging to get all of the parts to line up nicely. Looks pretty cab if you ask me, though not, in my opinion, a pretty cab. The cab is finished off with a roof, which more or less just drops right into place. I'm pretty sure the gaps above the doors there should be fine. I mean, we don't want the doors to be solidly shut, otherwise the crew has to get in and out Batman style, and that seems pretty difficult. Then we can move on to the cargo, or I guess it could also be a passenger compartment, and I start by adding the forward wall. The plank detail should be facing rearward. I add glue, and before it's had too much chance to set up, I add the bed, and make sure that it's lined up nice and straight. I then add the side walls. These more or less just drop right into place, along with the rear wall. Of course, a little bit of nudging is helpful in making sure that they all go together properly, but this isn't too much effort. The canvas covering comes next. And this is where I encountered a problem. It seems the recess on the inside of the cover part isn't actually big enough to accommodate the lower part. I fixed this by hacking at it with my knife, which is a bit annoying to have to do, but I guess it could be worse. This is a pretty good argument for just leaving the cover off, and at this point I still haven't decided whether I will do that or not. The problem does exist with all of the trucks I've built so far from this box, and I don't see the remaining 2 being any different. I follow that by gluing the front bumper into place. This is quite simple. There's a kind of slot, almost, at the bottom under the radiator for this part to go into. It seems like wheels would be a really good idea at this point, so I put them on next. I mean, there's nothing else to do really. I start with the spare wheel that goes in behind the cab. You don't have to put this on, but it looks kind of interesting, so I've chosen to do so. There's no keying for it, so you've just got to eyeball it. And then I install the wheels into their place on the ends of the axles, which is right where you might expect them to go. There's no keying for these, and it's not really needed, because this kit doesn't have that slightly flattened part at the bottom of the wheel to simulate the vehicle's weight. I do like when kits have that, but I'm also not upset when it's not included, and the wheels do look good as they are. I make sure they're on nice and straight, and that's it. The teeny tiny Canadian military pattern truck in 15mm scale by the Plastic Soldier Company is now complete. This should help move some of those British or Australian or maybe Canadian or Indian troops around the battlefield. It might even be able to tow stuff. I mean, I'm sure it could tow stuff in real life, but I don't know about the rules for Flames of War, which is where I would most likely be using this model. But I guess that's not super important right now. Also, here's a fun fact, these trucks were licensed and built in Australia. I guess it's not really that relevant, but I thought it was interesting. All of that aside, I'm quite happy with how this model has turned out. Not that I'm surprised by that. The Plastic Soldier Company's stuff is pretty consistently good, and I feel confident that I'll get something good anytime I buy their kits. As you can see, the canvas cover is now sitting in place on the truck, but it might not stay there. That, along with the spare wheel, is pretty much the only optional parts in this kit, but that's okay. Plastic Soldier Company stuff does usually come with more options, usually quite a few of them, but I suppose there isn't really a whole lot of variation with this kind of truck. It does mean my bits box is a little bit upset, but that's okay. It'll deal with it, and I can't really complain. I've got exactly what I expected I would get out of the kit. That is to say, 5 of these trucks. Anything else would of course be a bonus. But you can't always expect to get bonus parts. Maybe I'm waffling. Anyway, I do plan to paint these relatively soon. I haven't really decided on a paint scheme for them, but I'm thinking black and green. There's an example of a truck like this painted black and green at Tank Ride, so I'm kind of thinking it might be a cool idea to paint them like that. But that's for future Herbert to worry about. At this point I have only managed to get 3 of the 5 trucks in the box built, and so far all 3 have been built live on stream. I might build the remaining 2 live also. So if you would like to watch me glue bits of plastic together live, and hang out with a pretty good bunch of folk in the chat, head on over to twitch.tv/Herbert_Erpaderp, or follow the convenient link in the description. Give me a follow, and you'll be notified when I go live. Come by and say hi. That would be rad. Self-promotion aside, this kit was a joy to put together, only a little cleanup, and nothing too confusing, though the ill-fitting canvas covering is a bit annoying. That can be dealt with or just omitted, so I don't consider it a huge issue. It was also quite quick to put together. You could probably whip the entire box together in an afternoon, and still have time to dance the Charleston, or whatever it is people do for entertainment these days. So, in the end, it's a nice little model, which should be suitable for quite a few different forces, and should look great once painted and on the table. What do you think? Have you built this kit before? Do you use it in your Flames of War forces? Or do you prefer some other form of transport? Let me know in the comments below. If you haven't done so already, why not subscribe, follow, ring the bell, become a patron or YouTube member, and all the other things you do on the internet. And if you're feeling really helpful, why not share this video with your friends or anybody you think might get something out of it. Links to all of my things are in the description, and as always, I shall return soon. So until then, be excellent to each other, and thanks for watching. Farewell.